Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan salam kebajikan. Hello everyone, the Honorable Miss Dr. Zunuraini SHMH, and all of my beloved friends. Before we begin, allow me to introduce our group member. This is Aiman Rabani. This is Farid Hidayatullah. And here is Kiran Putih Paloma Dionita. And this is Lalu Alfian Sakwa Kalusa. And there is Nabila Azahra Junaidi. In this video, our group will present the topic Judgment in Opus v Turkey 2009 and state responsibility for domestic violence as a human rights violation. This presentation discusses an important case decided by the European Court of Human Rights, and the case explains that domestic violence should not only be seen as a private family problem, but also as a serious human rights issue when the state fails to provide protection. To begin the presentation, I will first deliver the introduction and background of the case. Traditionally, domestic violence was often considered a private matter inside the family. Because of this view, public authorities often did not intervene even when victims had already reported the violence. As a result, many victims didn't receive proper legal protection. However, from a human rights perspective, domestic violence is not merely a personal or family conflict. When the authorities know about violence but fail to take action, the state may also be responsible to the violations of human rights. In the case of Opus v Turkey, Nahide Opus and her mother suffered repeated domestic violence from H.O., who was Opus' husband. The violence included physical assaults, death threats, serious injuries, and psychological intimidation. The authorities had already received many complaints, and there were also medical reports showing the injuries suffered by the victims. However, the authorities failed to provide effective protection, and sadly in March 2002, H.O. shot and killed Opus' mother. This case became very important because the court didn't only focus on punishment after the crime happened. The court also examined whether the state could have prevented the violence before it became fatal. After this, the presentation will be continued by Alfian, who will explain the legal issues of this case. So Alfian, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marsha. So, in this slide, I will explain the main legal issues that identified in the case of Opus v Turkey, namely the right to life, the prohibition of inhuman or degrading treatment, the principle of non-discrimination, and the broader human rights dimension of the case. The first one is regarding Article 2, which protects the right to life. The key question in this case was whether the Turkish authorities had fulfilled their obligation to protect the applicant's mother from a threat that was both serious and foreseeable. Article 2 not only requires states to refrain from unlawfully taking life, but also imposes a positive obligation to take preventive measures when authorities are aware of a real and immediate risk to an individual's life. The second one is regarding to Article 3, which prohibits inhuman or degrading treatment. Nahide Opus was subjected to repeated acts of domestic violence and threats by the perpetrator. Therefore, the court examined whether the state's failure to provide effective protection had allowed the applicant to remain exposed to treatment that reached the threshold of inhuman or degrading treatment under Article 3. The third, regarding to Article 14 on non-discrimination, the court found that the passive response of the authorities to domestic violence reflected unequal protection for women. In other words, the state's failure to provide effective protection was not only a matter of inadequate law enforcement, but was also linked to gender based discrimination. Finally, this case has a broader human rights dimension because it concerns not only the actions of perpetrator, but also the responsibility of the state and its institution, including the police, prosecutors, and the courts. The case demonstrates that human rights violence may arise not only from individual conduct but also from systemic failures within the legal system to provide adequate protection.
Okay, thank you, Alfian. Next, we will continue to the theoretical framework of this case, which will be delivered by Kiran. To Kiran, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marsha. So, in this section, we use several key concepts to analyze Opus v Turkey from a human rights perspective. The first one is state responsibility. So, states can be held responsible not only for violations committed by their agents, but also for failing to protect individuals from harm caused by private actors. In domestic violence cases, this means that the state cannot simply treat the issue as a private matter. The second one is positive obligations. Human rights law requires states to take active steps to protect individuals. In Osman v. United Kingdom, the court explained that authorities must act when they know or should know about a real and immediate risk to an individual. The third one, due diligence. This refers to the obligations of states to take reasonable measures to prevent, investigate, punish, and provide remedies for acts of violence. If the state fails to act with due diligence, it may be held responsible under human rights law. The fourth one is gender based discriminations. Domestic violence is not only an individual issue but also reflects structural inequality. So, state inaction may reinforce discrimination against women, which is why this issue is also linked to equality rights. Finally, the fifth one is the public private divide. Although domestic violence occurs in the private sphere, the human rights law rejects the idea that it's beyond state responsibility. States still have a duty to intervene and protect the victims. That's all from me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Kiran. The next material that will be delivered by Aiman. To Aiman, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Caca. So, in this slide, I will explain the court's analysis of Article 2, which protects the right to life in the case of Opus v Turkey. The main issue was whether the Turkish authorities knew or should have known that the applicant's mother was facing a serious risk to her life. According to the court, the risk was clearly foreseeable. There had been numerous complaints filed against the preparator, a documented history of domestic violence, and repeated threats and assaults. These incidents showed that the danger was not hypothetical or unexpected. The authorities had enough information to understand that both the applicant and her mother were at serious risk. The court also emphasized that it was not necessary to prove that the authorities knew that the exact date or method of the killing. Instead, the important question was whether there was a pattern of violence that created a real and immediate risk. Since the violence had escalated over time, serious harm was reasonably predictable. Despite the warning signs, the authorities failed to take effective preventive measures. They did not conduct a proper risk assignment, provide adequate protection, or take sufficient legal action to prevent further violence. As a result, the court found that Turkey had violated the Article 2 of the Convention. The authorities failed to take reasonable steps that could have protected the victim's life. The significance of this decision is that the right to life has a preventive dimension. A state cannot simply wait until a person is killed and then punish the offender. It also has a positive obligation to act when there is a known and foreseeable risk to someone's life. In this case, the problem was not just mistake of a single official. The court viewed viewed it as a broader institutional failure to recognize and respond seriously to repeated domestic violence. Therefore, the violation of Article 2 demonstrates how weak state responses can turn foreseeable patience violence into a human right violation. And now the next slide will be delivered to Bila.
Okay, thank you, Aiman. So this is our analysis of article number 3 about the European Convention on Human Rights, where prohibits torture and inhuman or degrading treatment. So, from our analysis of the Opus v Turkey judgment regarding Article 3, there are some follows, which the first one is the nature of abuse, where the victim was subjected to repeated physical violence, profound physiological suffering, and a constant state of fear and intimidations. And then there's stage knowledge. It is important to note that the authorized were repeated in form of this threat, and the risks were well documented through formal complaints and medical evidence. And then the court determined that domestic violence can indeed reach the threshold of inhuman or degrading treatment. State responsibility arises when authorities fail to respond adequately to such foreseeable risks. And then the significance is this ruling reinforced that human rights protections extend to violence committed by private individuals, and victim has a fundamental right to effective protections from serious abuse. And then there's the analysis of article number 14, which is the most progressive aspect of judgment regarding non-discriminations. So there's the reasoning critical for several reasons, which the first one is the court observations that the court recognized that violence against women in the region was widespread, yet authorized frequently dismisses domestic violence as a minor or private issues. And then there's the institutional passivity that the court highlighted that police and judicial responses were often ineffective, and complaints filed by women were frequently not taken seriously. And then there's the substantive equality, where the court established that equal protections require more than just neutral laws on paper. It necessitates effective protective protection in practice to ensure the equality. And then there is the historical importance, where Opus v Turkey is significant for being one of the first ECHR cases to explicitly recognize domestic violence as a form of gender-based discriminations. Next presentation will be explained by Farid.
Okay, thank you, Bila. I would like to present about the critical evaluation for this case. The greatest strength of this judgment lies in its approach to domestic violence as a systemic human rights problem rather than just isolated family incidents. The court rightly pointed out that having written criminal laws and formal complaint procedures is simply not enough. If its institutional enforcement is weak and official passivity leaves vulnerable victims in ongoing danger. By linking this passivity to Article 14 of the Convention, the court made a groundbreaking shift from formal equality to substantive equality. It recognized that when authorities repeatedly tolerate or minimize domestic violence, they are reinforcing patterns of gender-based discrimination against women in practice. However, a critical evaluation also reveals a significant challenge regarding implementation. While a landmark court ruling can successfully clarify international legal standards, it cannot automatically or instantly change deeply rooted police culture, prosecutorial practice, judicial attitudes, or patriarchal social norms on the ground. The real impact of opus ultimately depends on whether states can effectively translate these high standards into practical domestic reform. Lastly, we must note that the judgment does not impose an unlimited or impossible burden of liability on states. The due diligence standard is fundamentally grounded in reasonableness. The state is not held accountable for every private act of violence, but it legally becomes a human rights failure when authorities have clear knowledge of a serious foreseeable risk and yet fail to take reasonably viable measure to prevent it. Thank you. Saya kembalikan pada Caca.
Tanya.
Okay, thank you, Farid, for the explanation. Based on the whole discussion, it can be concluded that Opus v Turkey is a landmark case in international human rights law, and this case shows that domestic violence is not only a private family matter, but also a serious human rights issue that requires state protection. The European Court of Human Rights found that Turkey violated Article 2, Article 3, and Article 14, and these violations happened because the state failed to protect the victims from repeat domestic violence and failed to prevent a foreseeable risk to life and showed institutional passivity toward violence against women. The most important lesson from this case is that states have positive obligation. It means that state must actively protect individuals from serious harm even when the perpetrator is a private citizen. Therefore, this case strengthens the principle of state responsibility due to diligence and gender justice in human rights protection. That concludes our group discussion presentation, and we realize that our presentation may still have some weakness, and therefore if there are any questions, suggestions, or comments, please write them in the comment section below, and we will happy to respond them. And thank you very much for watching and listening to our presentation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.